Yeah, my brother didn't let me cut my hair. Every time I try to go in there for a haircut, he's like, no, I'm not touching it. So after today, I will get some style in there.
So yeah, these are the photos from before, right? So, you know, we did this a little bit over a year ago.
Yeah.
And that's part of the hard part about hair transplant is that it takes time. A lot of the stuff I do, if I'm doing someone's eyelids or even if I do someone's rhinoplasty, I take off the cast and like they can see the result right away.
Right.
With hair transplant, it takes, you know, how long did it take? So I'll ask you, like, when did you?
I think until like maybe a few months or so, I'm still feeling like hair coming.
Even now, you're over a year at this point.
Yeah, so it kept changing. Like it kept adding more volume. I thought it was done, but it keeps coming out.
Yeah,
a little
and
bit.
most people, what happens, so obviously on the day of the procedure, so these were his photos actually. That was the day of the procedure. You're in that nice fancy blue gown.
Yeah.
We shaved your head after this, right?
Oh yeah, no, and I went out and people were like, "Oh my God, you have amazing hair," but it was all the scarring. It looked thick, like I looked like a GI Joe when I was a little dog. It was like black.
So for this procedure, this was hair right before we were going in, and then after we take the photos, we always want to see how his hair, how he wears his hair, how it looks when he's styling it naturally. We then buzzed it down. Why did we buzz it down? We did an FUE technique. That means we harvested each hair follicle from the back. We did 2,500 grafts, which is a good size session. And I kind of talked about like areas we restored. We wanted to add more density to this frontal area, and we wanted to help with this kind of recession in the corners. We talked about the hairline that I was creating. So on the day of, I kind of drew, and I have a video of kind of how we drew it in, what the pattern was going to look like. But this is kind of your hairline pattern for life now. Because these hairs, all these hairs in the front that we've now restored that came from the back, they still think they're in the back. So they're not going to shed over time, which is why that's great. That's how the procedure works. But we also want to create a hairline that when you're 65 still looks natural.
Yeah.
Right? So we're always thinking of that. How old are you, Silvio?
50.
Are you already 50?
Yeah.
You turned 50 between the hair transplant and now?
Yeah, February.
So, you know, the thing that's nice about doing a hair transplant at that stage versus sometimes we'll see patients a lot younger, we have to be more careful because the hairline's changing more, you know. With you, your hairline's going to be kind of here. So we did restore this frontal area. We gave a lot of density to the middle part of the hair. We did the temporal area or the sides of the hair to bring that hairline down a little bit. What we did not do, we didn't do your crown at all. No. So I talked to you about that and I said, I may have a photo of your crown. We never like to try and cover too many areas with too few grafts. We want to make sure we get full coverage. And just see where your crown area is. This gives us a little view of it. So this is the area here that we have not restored yet. So we kind of went everything in front of that. And the timing, I kind of was talking to you about how long it took to, you know, this is kind of a 3/4 view that we're seeing before. The hairs we transplant, they tend to start growing in right away. It probably felt kind of like little stubbly hairs at week 1, right? And then most of the time those hairs shed in the first 3 months. Did most of what I grafted kind of disappear at 2 or 3 months?
No, I didn't touch it. I was like very careful.
But did it get thinner? Like did it like, so you know the first few weeks it was growing in, right? It was spiky.
Yeah.
And you could see the new hairline. But
yeah, then sometimes it would cross like a little, and then I'd see a little hair and I'm like, oh no,
you'd see a hair follicle in it, correct? Because they kind of like, it sheds the shaft of the hair. But did it ever go like almost back to where you were?
No.
So that is a little bit atypical. Definitely some patients get that, but I would say about half of patients almost go back to where they were. Like the hairs are growing, they all kind of shed and then they grow in over the next few months.
Yeah.
I'd say about maybe 25% of patients say, yeah, I lost maybe 50% or something. When I say lost, temporarily. And then there's kind of the minority, like you, a little less than 25% say, really what you planted kind of grew right away. But for most patients, they don't start seeing the results till about 6 months out.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah, I started noticing
and then
later.
It looks better. You're like, wow, I like it. But then you look at a photo 3 months or 6 months later, and the hair's thicker, the quality's better. The hairs are sometimes a little bit more bristly in the beginning. They're just, the texture isn't the same. So it really, you're kind of past the 1 year mark now.
Yeah.
And that's a good time to really look at it and evaluate it and see kind of what output it really did. So I know you told me just before I came in the room, or when we just walked into the room, that people always knew you for wearing a hat.
Yeah, and I don't wear one now. And they're like, why would you wear a hat? Like, I wish I had your hairline on.
Yeah.
Only you knew.
Yeah, it's...
Hope it's to go viral now, but I'm in trouble.
Yeah, I don't know if you can get this shot in here just to kind of show the hairline from the front. And this is... the key part of the hairline is really like, see, there's just these like regular kind of hairs that are not, it's not just a little jagged line. Everyone's biggest fear if they're doing a hair transplant is like, it's gonna look like I had a hair transplant. And why does it not? You can see how the hairline goes kind of up and down. And I have a video of the day that I marked it out where it shows kind of a very natural pattern, because our hair actually grows like this. And the hairs along the front row, all of these front hairs, they're all single follicle hairs, because our hairs grow in follicles of singles, doubles, triples, 4 hairs growing out at a time. And along the front, we want all these finer single follicles. And that's what makes it look natural. And then it's the angle. Like, he has a natural curve to his hair this way. He has no product in his hair today. He told me when I usually put some product in, like most of us do, it looks thicker, it obviously looks better, but I asked him not to put anything in his hair so we can see it without cheating in any way. But it's the angle of the hairs, the way they all blend in, because these are all new hairs. These are all new hairs. When I say new, they were taken from the back and put in the front. So when we look at them from the front, it kind of just frames the face. It's still a very natural hairline for a 50-year-old. We're not trying to make him look like he's got a 25-year-old's hairline, or like mine, that someone said I had a 10-year-old's hairline. Everything hurts you on Instagram too. But anyways, we want a natural result with recession still that's appropriate for his current age and in the future. So that's kind of typical of what we'd see at this stage. That was 2,500 grafts. Many patients will do a second session, Silvio, so they'll say, okay, I like that. Can I fill in my crown? For a crown, we'd probably do 1,750, because it's not as large an area as what we covered. And we may even say, well, let's do another 2,500 and use the balance of the grafts to add further density. So we may look at it and be like, I love it, I love the front view. Can we do a little bit more behind where we worked last time to complete it? So depending on their stage, we may do a second session. I would say, half of my patients will probably do a second session, and half will be like, this is amazing. Like, this is great. If I keep this for the rest of my life, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's more natural for me, like you said, at my age. Because if I show up with your hair, they're going to be like, nah, something's up.
I'm holding on to it for now. We don't know how long it's there for. But yeah, I do see the transitions being significant. Like, you can even see those like little birthmarks and moles. Those give us an idea of kind of where the hairline's moved, right? And kind of where we've added the density over time.
And what kind of like aftercare were you into? Like
aftercare, I know you recommended the Rogaine.
Yeah.
But I brought the products on, because I read the rosemary oil and jojoba. Yeah. Because it's a base for the rosemary. Yeah. And it recreates apparently the sebum of the hair. So it gives it a bit more moisture to it doesn't look as dry as it does right now. Sure. Yeah. And that's all I've been doing. So every other day, when I come out of the shower, just 5 drops and then rub it in.
That's perfect.
And then cover it up, and then the next day and it smells great too. So
yeah. And some patients are very reluctant to take medical therapy. Of course, we advise it. Why do we advise it? And when I say medical, I mean either Propecia or Rogaine. Right. Because we want to maintain the hair that's there. That's less important at your stage. It's always important, but less important for you, where you're not like, you already went through that period when you were younger where you lost, and then your hairline is fairly stable. Right. Somebody who's 33, I'm going to be much more, vigilant about saying, we really want you on medical therapy because you're continuing to lose hair. We don't want you to progress. For you, it's kind of stabilization. And there's a lot of natural products out there which we don't even always understand, or sometimes we're kind of say, well, it's kind of hocus pocus. But there are, and we know now doing studies, there's a lot of natural substances that can help hair texture. Is it going to regrow hair and sprout new hair? Like if you look here where we did in the hair transplant, you're not going to grow new hair all over here. But is it going to help maintain and help the quality of it? For sure. And the biggest thing I look at differently, if we look at that photo over there to here, is just how the face is framed. Here we see kind of eyes, and the forehead almost doesn't stop. And it kind of and if you hadn't done anything, this area would have thinned over time as well.
Oh yeah, no, it wouldn't.
And so now it just kind of frames the face very well in a very natural manner.
Have you found, like, doing this procedure has changed your life in any way?
Oh yeah, of course, 100%. Like I don't have to wear the hat all the time. I could actually bust out some hairstyles. I mean, right now I'm not cutting it or styling it.
His brother's a hairstylist.
Yeah, he won't let me. He won't cut it.
His brother's been my hairstylist for this perfect hair here. So I'll do to his brother Sergio, right?
Yeah, I wanted to shave it off on the side and leave the top and comb it back, but he's like, no, I'm not cutting it.
Yeah.
So he wants me to grow it. So I think tomorrow or the day after I'll go for a haircut after this. But no, I'm not wearing the hats all the time, right? Whereas before I always had to cover it up. Yeah. It starts to look kind of.
It's like a confidence thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, right now I'm wearing a little makeup. I don't know if you can catch it. I forgot to take it all off. I went for a Halloween party at my brother's, and I could see the black under my eyes.
I thought he was joking because he's a
No, I'm like, I couldn't take that stuff out. I didn't realize you can't use water to remove makeup.
Yeah.
So I just smeared it all over my face.
Yeah, well, you should have come in costume. That would have been even better.
Well, yeah, I was Day of the Dead, so I came like a skeleton.
That's very neat. Yeah. Very, very cool.
Are you doing a follow-up procedure?
Yeah, that's a good question. Are you doing a secondary session? What do you think about like?
That's something to think about. Right now, it's comfortable and it's natural.
Yeah.
For people that know me, right?
Yeah.
So I think anything more right now, unless like they all die off and then they won't know who it is, but right now they'll know, and it's like I just want to make it subtle right now.
Yeah.
Right now,
and it's not even so much like, yes, there's some patients like I don't want anyone else. It's not even that. But it's just like people are like, I don't want to have a huge swing either. Like I don't want to look like a different person.
Yeah, like that new movie with Nicolas Cage right now with the full set of hair. You're like, come on.
Yeah.
It's obvious.
Yeah. So
it's like a wig.
Having something that kind of transitions slowly, and that's kind of the good part about the transplant too. Although you got to wait for it, it is kind of a gradual. Like you had the transplant, the next day got a full head of hair.
Yeah, like maybe 10 years later, 5 years later, come and do another like session, and nobody will really notice.
Yeah. And that's part of what I do at the follow-up is advise patients. So sometimes patients say, I want to do a session. I'm like, you know what? It may be a younger patient. So I may say, we've really made a huge change here. I know it was great, but don't keep chasing it too quickly. Let's push it out to 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years.
Exactly.
Or vice versa. Someone would say like, I love the result. My hair pattern's stable. Like, let's fill in the second part. And a year is kind of the point where we would say, okay, well, we can do another session.
I think what most people kept asking me now that you mentioned that, we're talking about the changes, is people kept asking me if I dye my hair. They didn't notice the hair.
Yeah.
They kept thinking I was dyeing my hair.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you cannot have braids.
Yeah.
They never noticed for a second that I had more hair.
Yeah.
So most people kept asking me if I was dyeing my hair.
Yeah.
Like, you dye your hair, you did something.
Yeah.
You dye your hair. I'm like,
that's
you don't know. I can't. I didn't want to say, but it's not that I dyed my hair. It's that there was more hair.
Well, they're gonna know now. It's out there.
It's weird. When I walked in here and I saw you, so it had the appearance that like you dye your hair, but I guess
you see everybody keeps asking if I dye my hair, but it's like, no, I have more of it now.
Do you mind if I take a quick shot of the back area? So this is, Silvio wears his hair long, so it's not as much of a thing. Our other method of hair transplant is a strip method. We do a strip, we take a strip really from here to here, that's 1 centimeter wide. So it's a tiny little strip, but it's super long. And we get about the same number of grafts, maybe 2,500 grafts in something like this. When we do that, you have a very fine scar. Like obviously he doesn't have one because we didn't do that method, but you'd have a very fine scar, which would only be visible if you buzzed or shaved your head. So that's a consideration. For Silvio, we did FUE, so we shaved this entire back area. We took hair from this area that's not gonna thin over time. And then we punched out, every say 10th or 20th hair follicle. And we had all these hair follicles and we planted them one by one. So I don't say that this is scar-less technique. Nothing we do is scar-less. It's just a different scar. There's little tiny sub-millimeter. We used a 0.9 millimeter punch. So if you ever shaved his head, you might see these little faint tiny white dots. But certainly if you wear your hair, of course at this length, but even buzzed down, you would never see that. You would never see where the hair was taken from. If you do a strip, it's one fine, typically a 2 to 3 millimeter, usually 2 millimeter fine line. So yes, if you bicked your head shaved, you would see that fine line from ear to ear. But if you wear your hair short, you shouldn't see that line if someone's done a strip. Here we haven't done a strip, we've done FUE. But that's why in younger patients, or somebody says, you know what, like you, Brendan, you shave your head now. So say you did a hair transplant 10 years ago, and you're like, yeah, I want to strip it. Now you're like, I want to shave my head. If you had done a fine line, you'd have a fine line going side to side. If you'd done FUE like we did here, you probably could wear your hair the way it is and people wouldn't really know.
No, you wouldn't tell.
Jam, why did you say 10 years ago? You're saying there's no hope for me now, right? That's what you're saying. Subtly.
A good point about he's joking saying there's no point for me. This is Brandon who's filming. But the reality is that your result is dependent on your starting point, and it depends where you're going to go. So Silvio is a perfect candidate because he's got hair here. He's got good hair all here and behind it, but he's got localized areas of hair loss. His pattern is very restorable. Somebody else might come to me, say, like you were saying, 10 years ago, somebody might come to me when he's 30 and he's thin all through here. So I know it's not just going to be here and sort of thin here. I'm like, what's your dad's hair like? What's your uncle's hair like? What's your grandfather's hair like? And he's like, well, they kind of have hair in the back and they're all bald. I'm like, all bald? Like, is there any hair? No, they're like bald here and they got hair on the sides. Well, think about it. This area is bigger than this area. Even when I took all the hair here, I couldn't fill this area in. So there are some people who aren't candidates, and we have to be careful not to transplant those patients early. Having said that, there's some patients who are mostly bald here. We can't get this coverage, but we can create some hair here, like someone who has hair here and then on the side, so at least have something to comb. It still looks very natural, but it's all about knowing what's possible for you. So when I see something like this, I'm like, wow, you're gonna get a great, I just did a friend of mine, and he's like, I'm like, it's gonna be good. You're gonna have better density than you did, but it's not gonna be a miracle. He goes, yeah, you probably say that to everyone. Like, yeah, I know, you're saying it's not gonna be a miracle, but it's gonna be, and I'm like, no, I'm telling you, your hair at the back is thin. I can't take a lot of hair from here. I can only take small amounts. And when I put them here, it'll be better, but it's not gonna give you crazy density. And so the reality is when you see someone about hair restoration, it's about finding someone who knows, gives you a very realistic result, will tell you what to do, what not to do. Like if Sylvia said, well, do my crown at the same time, like just fill it in. I don't care if it's not as dense. I'd be like, no, because even now I'd want even more density in the front. It looks great, but if I had got half this density and then half the density here and it was just that same pattern but thin, it wouldn't be a good result. This is a great result. You may not do another hair transplant. If you don't care about your crown, well, then you're done.
No, I want to grow it. I want to get that money hair and just comb it back like you, like
the
that.
money hair. That's a good.
That's what my brother calls it, the money hair.
He always calls me.
All those celebrities, when they're not filming, they have the money hair.
Yeah.
What is your brother's situation? Does he have the same?
Different. Your brother's hair is different.
He's got more than me everywhere.
Yeah.
But we all have from my dad the same crown.
His is more crown.
So he did the other procedure, just because he's always going to keep it long.
He always keeps it long. So listen, he's a hairstylist, okay? He knows hair better than anybody. He sees people who have had hair transplants, and he elected, I advised him to do it, but he elected to have a strip rather. I'm like, Serge, do you want to shave your head? He's like, hell no, his hair's long. He wears it in like either braids or long.
Yeah, it's not good for business,
braids,
I tell him.
right?
Well, you're encouraging people to grow their hair.
Exactly. People
Nobody's
aren't
coming.
back
That's
for
why you're
that
not busy.
once a year, right?
Yeah.
So, but I encourage him to do a strip because I'm like, you're never going to shave your head. No one's ever going to see that scar. You don't want to shave your head for the procedure. We didn't shave that. We left it long. So for different people, you want the right advice. You don't want someone telling you, this is the best way. This is the scarless way. We do this. We do 5,000 grafts. No, you don't. So you just want someone who's going to give you truthfully what you're going to get, give you the recommendation, and that's what turns out to be a good result.